Recorded Books and RB Digital present The Best Science Fiction and Fantasy of the Year, Volume 11. Edited by Jonathan Strahan. Narrated by Michael G. Welch, Mimi Chang, Kathleen Gati, Tom Rivera, Lauren Baldwin, Ramon D. Ocampo, Rich Miller, Elizabeth Liang, J. Aaseng, Almarie Guerra, Lisa Renee Pitts, and Ione Butler. Introduction. Jonathan Strahan. Welcome to the best science fiction and fantasy of the year. The book you're holding is a snapshot of sorts, one reader's view of what was happening in fantasy and science fiction during the tumultuous year of 2016. As political philosophies dueled more nakedly across the world than they have in recent times, and as the world at large turned away from openness and inclusion, the science fiction and fantasy world continued on pretty much as it had before. The battle between old-school SF and that new stuff, which I mentioned last year, and the year before, continued. I suspect it's been continuing for at least the past century in one form or another, but everyone seemed a bit wearier of it to me, and I for one felt that light could be seen on the horizon. Words were said, again, social media feeds ignited, again, and awards rules were revised and tinkered with, again. And if the whole thing didn't peter out, at least it began to look like something we might get past. We'll see how it all falls out come awards time, but my guess is it won't prove to be that important at all. Inclusion, or at least awareness of science fiction and fantasy from outside North American and British publishing, became more widespread as well, with important work by writers from Asian and African nations appearing in most of the major publishing venues during the year. Clarkesworld continued its successful program publishing Chinese science fiction each month. Tor.com added coverage of African SF, Lightspeed, and fantasy published worthwhile special issues, and anthologies like Ken Liu's Invisible Planets, Contemporary Chinese Science Fiction in Translation, and Hassan Blasim's Iraq Plus 100, Stories from Another Iraq, showcased new voices for a wider audience. One of the challenges for inclusion is addressing how time tends to erase the voices of the past. And this year we saw two worthwhile books published that addressed the history of women in science fiction. Christine Catherine Rush's Women of Futures Past, Classic Stories, and Lisa Yazek and Patrick B. Sharp's Sisters of Tomorrow, The First Women of Science Fiction, together provided an important corrective showcasing the fine work women writers have always done in our field. It was particularly satisfying to follow the science fiction and fantasy field's many awards and see a diversity of writers and fiction collect major awards. Naomi Novik, Nnedi Okorafor, Sarah Pinsker, and Alyssa Wong took home well-deserved Nebula Awards. N.K. Jemisin won a landmark Best Novel Hugo Award, while Nnedi Okorafor, Hao Jingfang, and Naomi Kritzer were also recognized with Hugo Awards this year. And close to the end of the year, Anna Smale, Kelly Barnhill, Alyssa Wong, and C.S.E. Cooney received World Fantasy Awards for their work. You can get full details at the Science Fiction Awards database, www.sfadb.com, but all of their work deserves your attention. But how was it out there in the trenches this year? Well, it was not too dissimilar from the past few years. A lot of new short fiction was published, and in all sorts of places.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?